So as we just heard, U.S. President Donald Trump now says he'll send out tariff letters to at least 12 countries. For more on South Korea's last-minute efforts to minimize the impact of tariffs, we're joined by Professor Shim Myungkyu, Associate Professor of Economics at Yonsei University. Professor Shim, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So South Korea's presidential advisor and top trade negotiator is in Washington. Will the country be able to make meaningful progress in trade talks?
While there can be some progress at the current meetings, I don't expect to see the deals can be closed very soon. And as the top trade negotiator pointed out, there still exists high uncertainty surrounding the U.S. tariff policy, which changes very often. Importantly, I would like to point out that among 70 countries waiting to negotiate with the U.S., there are only 3 countries that have agreed the trade deals with the U.S., including the deal with Vietnam about 5 days ago. And given that this is the first meeting after the new president was elected in Korea, I guess this round of meeting will be utilized as searching for other countries' options rather than closing the deals.
I see. What leverage does South Korea have in tariff negotiations with the United States?
I think time is the kind of the leverage, and thus the best negotiation strategy for Korea would be not to put all the available options favorable for the U.S. on the table at first. For example, from the perspective of Korea, I don't believe that it will gain much from suggesting the adjustment of defense budget at first to lower the tariff rate, because it only lowers the negotiation power of Korea. It seems that there can be more room for the negotiations as time goes by, because keeping higher tariff rate would result in negative effect on the U.S. economy as well as the Korean economy, and anticipating such a negative effect, the negotiation power of the U.S. cannot be kept forever, as we have already experienced, given that it should deal with many countries, including Korea, at the same time.
Right. And the tariff deadline, the 90-day pause on tariffs, ends on Wednesday. What's likely to happen if this deadline is not extended? Which South Korean industries do you think will be the hardest hit once the tariffs go into effect?
Yeah, I expect that the tariff deadline would be extended at some point. While President Trump argued that there would be no extension in the deadline, we have experienced a lot that the Korean U.S. government changes its stance on the economic policies depending on the state of the world and the economy. As I have already pointed out earlier, the U.S. finished the trade deals with only 3 countries, and it is more likely that it will extend the deadline to avoid the kind of the side effects of higher tariff on the U.S. economy. So if you think about the situation when the deadline is not extended, there would be some industries that would be hit hard, automobile and steel industries in particular. Especially the newly passed bill in the U.S. reduced the subsidies on the EV cars, and higher tariff will make Korean automobile firms to lose their price competitiveness in the U.S. And steel industry is already hit hard, and higher tariff might make the industry more vulnerable.
I see. And as for the domestic economy, the government will soon begin distributing cash handouts, and this is a key part of its supplementary budget. How effective will this measure be in reviving the domestic economy?
My view on the effectiveness of the direct transfer is not so negative. It seems that the Korean economy needs more fiscal spending for directly boosting demand, especially because the Korean economic downturn comes mainly from the demand side, and it can be relieved by greater government spending or transfer and less in the short run. While there exists a lot of studies arguing that the fiscal policy is not so effective, there also exist many studies that show that the effect of the expansionary fiscal policy is particularly effective during the recessionary episodes, and I think it applies to the Korean economy.
I see. All right, Professor Shim, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this morning. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.